world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
So we've already knew that Justin Trudeau, a man who considers himself to be a sort of paragon of Western democracy and freedom, he can't take criticism, and he doesn't seem to accept the concept of peaceful demonstration. So the Freedom Convoy has descended on the capital over there, and the first thing he tried to do was freeze all their bank accounts, and even freeze the bank accounts of people who donated to the Freedom Convoy. He didn't even have to be on it for him to want to block your money. It's currently the government there is currently issuing warnings to anyone involved in these anti-mandate protests, saying that in addition to freezing their bank accounts and towing their trucks, they can confiscate their pets as well. There are plans involved to take some of the leaders of these convoys and to put them in jail. And if there's a Canadian law, if after 8 days no home can be found for these pets, they will be put down. So his latest threat, Stephen, is to kill the dogs of the protesters. What is going on with this man?
Well, there's a certain madness that has attributed himself now to Trudeau. We talk about the madness of King George and the madness of leaders when they've had too much power for too long. It is very clear to everybody now, those in Parliament, those of the people of Canada, and those outside the world, that he has completely lost it over this, the protests, as they call them, but I call them the freedom fighters of the truckers, who decided to protest about having an injection placed into their arm forcibly, or they would lose their jobs. And that's what it's about. It's about free democracy. It's about to express your own opinions and views to your political leaders, and they all drove to Ottawa to do so. But what you have seen over the last few days, last night, he arrested Chris Barber, the so-called protagonist and organiser of the truckers' convoy. That was very clearly done, visibly, with the police. 4 days ago, he put in SWAT teams and the army, obviously trying to mirror Macron's approach to dealing with people who are freedom protesters. And he put them on the bridges between America and Canada, which have had other protests. He's then initiated, for the first time since the Second World War, actually something done by his father when his father was Prime Minister, a wartime legislation, as though they're in a state of war. And then 2 days ago, he insulted a Jewish Conservative MP, Melissa Lantsman, when he said she stood with people with swastikas. This man has completely lost it, doesn't know how to govern anymore, and can only govern by insults, brutality, and force.
And you're right. I think he's fallen victim to the syndrome. Both him, Jacinda Ardern, arguably Macron as well. They've had this ultimate power for the past 2 years due to the necessities, they would claim, of the COVID crisis. And it seems that they just don't want to let it go. I mean, the reason the Freedom Convoy is asking for their freedom back and saying no more mandates, no more restrictions, no more rules, regulations and diktats is because we're talking about Omicron now. Omicron will give you the sniffles for a couple of days. It is not a particularly strong variant. So what is this all about? It just seems to me to be a leader, a left-wing leader, who's been drunk with power, and like all left-wing leaders, he doesn't think that anybody should protest about the state. And I think he's going insane.
I think it was visible in the parliamentary speeches. Dane Lloyd, who is another Conservative MP, was so incensed when he said that you all stood with people with swastikas. He made this impassioned speech which said, my grandfather fought in the Second World War and flew 60 bombing missions. My great-uncle is buried or in the Channel fighting against the Nazis. And you accuse us of standing next to Nazis and those with the swastikas. And when you watched him being asked to apologise, which he did 3 times, it was only on the third occasion when Trudeau was standing there that his hands started to shake and his voice tremored, because he could see that behind him he wasn't getting the support from his own MPs. He'd realised he'd overstepped the mark. And when you've got that much power, when you've controlled people, when you realise that the Omicron isn't as serious as you've got, and you've got countries like Britain now that is returning as best as it can to normal, and you're still continuing the power of control of your people, I think at that point he realised he's gone over the edge, and that's where his madness is.
He has gone over the edge, and let's just nail the lie. See, what he says is this convoy, all these protesters, they're saying the same about the people in New Zealand, where there's also this sort of organic uprising of people who just said enough. They say, oh, you're anti-vaxxers, you're Nazis, you're racists, you're misogynists, you're homophobes. Well, first of all, sure, there are probably some anti-vaxxers involved in these protests, just as there have been here in Britain in our freedom marches. There are some anti-vaxxers, but by no means the majority, by no means all of them are anti-vaxxers. They're just people who are sick and tired of having had their liberty taken away. And to then start calling them, to somehow equate the demand or the request for our freedom back with Nazism, misogyny, homophobia, right-wing extremism, it's just insane and unjustified.
Well, it's not only unjustified, but the visible evidence. They were actually antagonising people to try and get violence. Last night, we reviewed documentation from the Canadian security services that actually said that there wasn't likely to be any violence there except from small groups. And they kept reiterating these small groups are likely to do a January 6th on Canada. And when it didn't happen, they've been completely upset and shocked by it. So first of all, they got the Ottawa Prime Minister or Mayor to actually issue a statement saying that we're bringing out the police to remove the people from the bridges. And then you had the visible evidence of the people who were campaigning for freedom doing so peaceably. They didn't go, so they had all the troops there. They wanted to have this visible evidence, but the people were too peaceable.
All I hope, Stephen, is that next time Canada have a general election, they think long and hard about this Tim Pot tyrant who's running the country right now. He needs to go.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.